Why should we amend the Electoral College?
The Electoral College is often something that we hear around this time near the election. But what is the Electoral College? Well, the Electoral College is how the U.S. votes for presidential elections, and it is unlike any other form of voting in the U.S. Through the Electoral College, we the voters vote for electors, which are the people who will elect the vice president and president weeks after election. Each state goes through their own voting, and each state is entitled to a certain number of electors based on the number of representatives and senators they have in Congress. Today, the Electoral College has 538 electors. In order to win an election, the elected official must win at least 270 of the 538 electoral votes. How an electoral vote is gained is by the popular vote of each state. The Electoral College can be best described as a winner-takes-all situation in nearly every state, which means if a candidate wins a majority in the state, they will receive all the electoral votes for that state. Even though most states use the Electoral College, Maine and Nebraska do not, as they distribute their votes by congressional district. Whichever candidate gets the popular vote in their district gets the district vote. The remaining 2 electoral votes are awarded to the candidate who wins the popular vote statewide. If a conclusion cannot be made on who wins the Electoral College, the president and vice president are elected by the House of Representatives. Although there has been a lot of controversy surrounding the Electoral College, our group believes we should alter it rather than abolish it.
The Electoral College and its system to count and organize votes can negatively affect society in a greatly damaging manner. Let's take a look at how our society has been impacted in both a recent and past election. Even if it is only a marginal win, the way the Electoral College is set up can make it seem like a national decisiveness over who the victor was. This can lead to a hugely divided nation, with some voters believing that the election has been rigged. And we saw this in our recent election, where some voters are now claiming that the election has been rigged to Biden's favor. A perfect example is the 1980 election, where Ronald Reagan was declared the winner. Reagan won 50.7% of the popular vote, not 51%, 50.7%. Despite this simple majority win, he went on to win 91% of the Electoral College votes, won just over half of the popular vote, but the majority of the Electoral College votes.
What are the cons of the Electoral College?
A con about Electoral College is it gives too much power towards the swing states. What the swing states are is a state where both Democratic and Republican candidates receive strong support, so it can be one way or another. Presidential candidates only need to pay attention to a certain number of states that could swing one way to another. For example, 2 main political parties could count on winning the electoral votes in certain states, like California is a Democratic Party and Indiana is a Republican Party. With over 300 million people in the US, just 538 people will decide the next president. An example would be when Hillary and Trump were against each other and Hillary won the most popular votes but lost the electoral votes. There have been 5 times in the US history where the president won the presidential debate and lost the popular votes but instead won the electoral votes. Many people argue the Electoral College does not accurately represent the voice of the people as well.
One con of the Electoral College is that it can clash with the popular vote. Remember the 2000 election when Al Gore won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College, and therefore the presidency? That was enough to turn some Americans off from the Electoral College forever. If the US eliminates the Electoral College, that scenario would never happen again. Another con of the Electoral College is that it can make people feel like their votes don't count. In the Electoral College, it's true that not every vote matters. A Democrat in California who gets stuck in traffic and doesn't make it to the polls probably shouldn't beat themselves up. The same can be said for a voter in Florida, Ohio, or another swing state.
What are the pros of the Electoral College?
The first pro of the Electoral College is the Founding Fathers enshrined the Electoral College in the US Constitution because they thought it was the best method to choose the president. The Electoral College ensures that all parts of the country are involved in selecting the President of the United States. The Electoral College guarantees certainty to the outcome of the presidential election.
A pro of the Electoral College would be the Electoral College guarantees certainty to the outcome of the presidential election. Another would be if the election were based on popular vote, it would be possible for a candidate to receive the highest number of popular votes without actually obtaining a majority. This happened with President Nixon in 1968 and President Clinton in 1992, when both men won the most electoral votes while receiving just 43% of the popular vote. The existence of the Electoral College precluded calls for recounts or demands for runoff elections. The Electoral College processes can also create a longer mandate to give the president more credibility.
Why should the Electoral College be amended? The Founding Fathers established the Electoral College in order to avoid voting bias due to the lack of information voters have that is needed to decide who they want their next president to be. Even though the Electoral College gets its job done when it comes to picking the next president, it has flaws such as limiting America's democracy, and it's outdated in our modern society. Since the purpose of the Electoral College is to keep ignorant voters from voting blindly, this can now be ruled out due to technology. Information about a candidate can be easily obtained and spread, which can help a voter get their hands on relevant information about their candidate. Also, bias is very common nowadays since electors are chosen by political parties who expect them to vote for the party that elected them, regardless of their opinion or beliefs or their opinions about the candidate. The Electoral College should not be abolished but amended instead, because it is a way to ensure that the whole nation is involved in the process of selecting a new president. It also ensures that unfit and random candidates do not run for president, because it can cause major political parties to lose and not gain popular votes.
Here are some ways to reduce the power of the Electoral College. First, we can reduce the power it holds and give more power to the popular vote. Next, we can also not allow swing states to have the most influence on who will be the next presidential candidate. Lastly, we can take into account the 3 proposals made to Congress on how to reform the Electoral College system. Here are the first 2 plans proposed to Congress on how to reform the Electoral College. Number 1 would be the automatic plan. This would award the electoral vote based on the current winner in each state. Next would be the district plan. As mentioned before, that is already done in Maine and Nebraska. This would award 1 electoral college vote to the winning candidate in each congressional district in each state, and then the 2 additional votes would be awarded based on the statewide popular vote. The last proposal was the proportional plan. This would award each state's electoral vote based on a portion of the percentage of the popular vote gained by each ticket. Thank you for listening to our presentation on how to amend the Electoral College.